Hello people, welcome back to Everywhere Tools. Today is a lovely day for making a garden gate. So if you're up for it, today I'm going to be showing you some different types of legend brace gates, and we're going to be making them out here on site. So as always, I've got my tools, I've got my tea, let's go. I just want to say right from the start then that if you are a joiner, you are probably going to not like this video very much. You're probably going to be shouting at your screen, you don't do it like that, you do it like this. But the idea of this video is just to help you if you're thinking of making a gate yourself, or if you're starting out as a carpenter, and when your customer says, oh, can you make me a gate? I want you to feel confident that you'll be able to do that out on site. So I'm aware that it's going to be different to doing it in a joiner shop. That's not to say that we're going to do a second-rate job. It's just that things are different. It's a different environment. It's different tools. It's a bit like, how can we think of an analogy? Say it's a bit like a surgeon on the front line. So a surgeon on the front line is going to do exactly the same job as a surgeon in a hospital, in a nice clean environment. They're both trying to save lives, they're both patching people up. Hopefully the outcome is the same. It's just that the surgeon on the front line is using what he's got, and it's a bit different to being in a nice clinical environment, which is the same as this really. We're out on site, we're kind of using different tools. We're not in a nice joiner's shop, although I'd love to be. With lots of nice machinery around, and everything's all laid out and it's all clinical. So the idea of this is just to help you to work out how to do some joints out on site and how to make a basic gate really. Just want to bring you up to speed as to where we're at. So this is our opening here, and this is where our gate is going to go. It's quite a big opening, this one. It's over 1 meter wide, which is why we're having to make one instead of just buy one. So the post, you can see they're white at the moment. So what I've done is I've put knotting on the timber, then we've primed them, undercoated it, and I've put a top coat on the back edge that's going against the wall. So I've done all that in advance just because, you know, it's just painting. But I would say that you don't want to skip on this process, because we don't want this timber to start rotting in a couple of years. We want this to last. So take your time with the prep, do it right, put the right amount of coats of paint on. There's 3 different types of gates that I want to show you today. Starting off with the basic, so I'm going to call them standard, Premier and a deluxe. So this is the standard way of doing a legend braced gate. So we've got our tongue and groove boards here, and what you will do is you will obviously cut them all to the right length you want, fix them all together, make sure that that is square. It's got to make sure that's square, and then you would just cut your top rail at the top here. You want to leave it back a bit, just so that the doorstop for the gate can shoot past there. Obviously cut it to length. So that's going to be your top rail. You have a middle rail, exactly the same, and a bottom rail, which is normally a bit wider than the top and the bottom. You do exactly the same for all those, and then you would get your brace timber, which you will cut here, and then you would do one here as well. So obviously you've got to turn this, flip this over the other way because you want to screw the tongue and groove through the face coming up into this timber. You don't really want to do it that way. Well, I guess you can do, it's up to you. I'd do it the other way, just so that the tongue and groove is, you know, screwed right up tight to this timber. So that is the standard ledge and brace door. The Premier version then, if you want to call it that, would be a framed ledge and brace door. So the difference with this one is that obviously you've got two styles, one either side. You've still got a top rail, middle rail and bottom rail. But what you're going to do if you're doing it this way is you are going to be doing half lap joints on all the corners and a half lap joint in the middle. If you're a carpenter, then you're probably used to those. I do half lap joints all the time if I'm bedding wall plates on for a roof. If the timbers aren't long enough and you've got to join them, I will do half lap joints on that. So it's a fairly standard joint. I'll be showing you how to do that as we move on when we come to making our gate. But that is a framed ledge and brace door, and also obviously you will screw your tongue and groove to these styles coming up the other way as well. So you want to turn the whole thing over once you've made the frame. I'll be showing you how to do the frame and how to square it up later. And then also you do your braces the same as the standard version, one at the top and one at the bottom. So that would be the Premier version. So the last version, and this is the version that we're going to be doing, it's the same as a framed ledge and braced gate. The only difference is on the face side we are going to be rebating these stiles, and our tongue and groove boarding is going to be sitting flush with our frame. So it's not going to be sitting on the top, it's going to be rebated in. It's going to be rebated in at the top. It's going to shoot past the middle stile because the middle stile is going to be narrower, and it's going to shoot past our bottom rail, not stile, middle rail and bottom rail. It's going to shoot past those because they are going to be narrower. So in effect you'll have a frame either side and at the top, and then our tongue and groove board will just float all the way down to the bottom. So that's the idea. So next up we need to start marking out our timber for our joints. So I've chosen our two stiles. I've checked that they're straight all the way down. Now also I'm aware, all you joiners out there, that this isn't joinery grade timber. This is just prepared plain all round softwood timber. It's going to be fine for what we're doing, but you know, it isn't joinery grade. So but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check with my square that our face and our edge are square to each other, which this one is, and this one is as well, because I've checked it already. So then we want to put a face edge, a face mark on here, a face mark on here, edge mark on here and here, and whenever we square our timber on these, I'm always going to square it from this mark on the edge and from this mark on the face, just so that I know if I mark all the way around the timber by doing it on these two edges, it's always going to line up. If your timber's not quite square and you just feed it around like that on every face, by the time you get to the other side, it's more likely not to be, the pencil lines won't line up. So that's why we have face marks and an edge mark as well. So I'm just going to turn this one round, because all my marking out is going to be like that. So when I come to mark the joints, I'll be marking them on the inside, and my router, when we do our rebate, is going to be on this inside as well. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do all my setting out on one length of timber. Then I'm going to stand that one up next to it, and we'll transfer our marks onto this one so that we know they are exactly the same. So I'm just going to start. These aren't cut to length yet, by the way, so these are longer than I want. So I'm just going to start off with a shoulder mark, making sure that I'm marking from my face edge marks. Okay, so that's that, and then I know that the length of my door or gate is going to be 2 meters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tape on the 100mm, just because it's hard for me to put the end of my tape on my pencil mark. So I'm just going to put that on the 100mm, hold my tape all the way up till I get to 2 meters, which is here. And then I'm going to mark my 2 meter mark there, and at the end of it, that is going to be the height of our gate. So as you can see, I've got quite a bit of waste to come off the end of that, and that is that mark. Now we've got our shoulder marks. We want to mark out for the top rail, the middle rail and the bottom rail for our tenons that are going into these rails. So this timber finishes at 94mm. So I'm going to come down from the top 94mm, which is there. Square that off. The bottom rail, which is wider, is coming out at 144mm. So I will come up 144mm from the bottom. I'm still coming off the 100mm just because it's more precise, I think. If the end of your tape's a bit dodgy, 144mm. Square that one across as well. So that is going to be our mortise for our bottom rail, and then the middle rail is going to be 94mm as well, because I'm doing a 4-inch middle rail. So the middle rail, then I'm going to do halfway between the top of the bottom rail and the bottom of the top rail. So if I put that on the 100mm to there, that is 1660. So half of 1660 is 830. 830. Then half of 94, 47. So that's the bottom mark of the middle rail, and then we know that the whole thing is 94mm, so I'll mark that there. And then in theory, those distances should be the same. Which they are. It's 784, and that is 784. Square these over. And that is our middle rail. So I'm just going to transfer those marks over to this timber, very quickly. Mark that there. That's the bottom rail. Mark that there. That's the middle rail. Mark that there. That is the top rail. Square those off, making sure I use the face edge with my square. Middle rail. Make sure you have a very sharp pencil for doing all this, because we don't want baggy mortise and tenon joints. So that is our mortise marks for our rails. The next step is to mark out our mortises. So when you've done that, the next stage is to mark out your mortises. So for this you will need a mortise gauge which has got 2 pins on it. One's fixed and one will slide up and down. And the distance between those 2 pins will determine the width of your mortise. So I know that the bit that I'm going to be using is 13mm. So I've set the distance between the 2 pins at 13mm, and then we just need to find the center of our timber, because we want our mortise to be in the center. So what I normally do is find the scrap bit of timber at the end, mark 2 dots in the timber, and then turn it over, and if the 2 dots line up, then you know that you're marking the mortise gauge is in the center. If it doesn't, you'll see 4 dots. You just have to adjust it slightly so that they will both line up, and when they do, you can test it on the end on the scrap bit of timber. Now there is a correct way to hold a mortise gauge, believe it or not, or the way I was taught is you put your thumb on the end here, you put your 3 fingers in front and your little finger will be behind, and the idea of the little finger is to stop it from rocking backwards and forwards when you're marking it, so that balances it and keeps it at 90 degrees from the timber. So then we would just gently score our mortise, making sure we don't go over the line too much. You can do that a few times. Same with the middle one. And the same with the bottom one. Doesn't matter if we overshoot the bottom one because we've got waste timber at the bottom. And then you mark it like that. And then I'm just going to get my pencil and just lightly mark in the groove so I know where the mortise is. Like so. End one. So then I'm just going to repeat that on the other side. The next stage then is to chop out this mortise. So before I do that, I'm just going to get my marking gauge, and I'm going to put another line actually in the center of our mortise. I'll tell you why in a second. So I'm just going to mark that down the center of our line. I'll just pencil that in lightly as well. So that is because I'm going to use this this drill now. It's an 18 bolt Makita. It's got a handle and it's got a stop on it. So what we're going to do is, with this 13mm auger bit, we are going to make a series of holes to create our mortise. Now, because it's got a worm on the end, that's going to be, I'm going to place that on the center line every time, rather than trying to line up the shoulders. It will go down the center every time. And also on these mortises, I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm going to do a stop mortise, so I'm going to come down about 70mm, just because I don't want the tenons to go all the way through, just because it's a gate and it's outside. I just want less places for water to get in and less sort of end grain on the timber, so I'm going to stop them about 70mm down. So what I need to do is I've got to stop a depth gauge on this handle on this drill, and so when this depth gauge touches the timber, I know that it's time to stop drilling. So I've set that at the depth of my pencil mark, and I'm going to make a series of holes along here for our mortise. Now this is where it gets to what you could say surgeon on the front line sort of scenario, where we don't have a mortiser to make nice square cuts, holes, and a nice mortise. We're gonna use this drill, so it's going to do the same thing but just a bit differently. So you can make sure you got your drill upright. I've come in from my shoulder just a bit, so we don't want to go near that just now, and then we're going to drill down until the stop hits the timber. And then the best thing to do is try and leave a little gap and do the next one, because if you do the next hole too close to what you've just done, the drill will tend to slip back into that hole again. So stop that there. We just work our way along all the way to the end. Making sure we're in the center every time. Trying to keep your drill upright. Now I'm going to just move that to the edge. I don't want to go right to the shoulder at this point, so it doesn't matter if we've got a bit more waste material in the middle there. There, and that is the bulk of that done with the drill and auger bit. So next we bring in the chisels, which, as you can probably tell by you eagle-eyed viewers, that I've already cut myself with my chisel, just because I was holding it and I went to put my glasses on my head and I just sort of brushed it on the way past, and because they're razor sharp, it's cut my finger. Not a good idea. So I'm going to use two chisels. We've got an 1.25 inch and a 1/2 inch one, which is exactly the same width as our mortise, which is good. And what we're going to do is I'm going to use the 1.25 inch just to run down the lines that I've put in with my mortise gauge. And then you're not going to do this all in one go, by the way. We're sort of going to make our way through, just getting rid of the waste material that the drill was left behind. So I'll come either side with the 1.25 inch chisel, keep it in that groove. You've got to make sure you've got sharp chisels, by the way, because again, this is not going to work properly if you've got blunt chisels. So make sure they're nice and sharp, and then just swap over and we'll just chop down. The idea is just to get rid of all the bits that are left in there, because obviously we've drilled round holes instead of square holes that a mortiser would do. I'm going to keep away from both shoulders for now, either end. And another little tip, when you're doing the ends like that, you don't want to bring your chisel, you want to bring your chisel inwards to clear the waste. rather than bringing it out like that, because if you're near that shoulder and you bring your chisel around, you're just going to bruise that shoulder and you will be able to see it later on. So it's just a case of just working your way along now. Take your time, get it right, clear all that material out. You can stop every now and then and turn the timber upside down and clear it all out that way. But yeah, just keep going like that, clearing it all out until you reach the bottom. I'm just coming down to the last bit now at the bottom. You should be able to tell when you get to the bottom because you can just hear the tone change. It's more of a solid sound than a hollow sound. So then I'll know I'm at the bottom. So we'll just clean that out with our 1/2 inch chisel. And then the last bit is I'm just going to finish off going to the shoulder line all the way down, like so, all the way down to the bottom. Same this side. A couple of goes to the shoulder line, all the way down to the bottom, like so. Just clean that out. Clamp off. Give it a tap. And there we have our mortise all ready to go to receive our tenon. So I've got another another 5 to do. So I won't bore you with going through all of those, but I will see you when I've done those. Right, that is all our mortises done and all chopped out. The next stage that I'm going to do is I'm going to do the rebate on these 2 stiles, where the tongue and groove boarding is going to sit into. So what I need to do is work out how wide I'm going to do my rebate. I know how deep it's going to be because this is the middle rail. We want that to sit flush with the back edge, so I know that is how deep the rebate is going to be because our boards are going to sail past this. But we need to work out how wide we're going to do it, and the way I've done that is I've taken the rail here and I've marked out our overall width of our gate. I've marked out where the tenons are going to start, so that's the width of our stiles, and then this gap in the middle is where our tongue and groove boards are going to come down. So I found the center and I've worked out each edge, and these are 4 boards here, and the next 4 board sits just 20 mil past where the edge of our tenon is going to be, our frame. So I know now for 4, well, actually works out the 4 board. I was thinking I was going to have to cut these last tongue and groove down, but it's actually working out to a 4 board. So this rebate is 20 mil each end, which hopefully when it's all together I'll just be able to slot the 4 boards in and it should come up to that edge. So our rebate is going to be 20 mil wide. So what we're going to do is I've just made up this little frame here that's going to take the stile just for when I'm routing. It keeps it in place and it's not going to slide up that end, it's not going to slide that way, it's going to stay where it is. I've got this Dewalt palm router here, which I'm going to use. You comes with different attachments. You can take these handles off and the router actually comes out, and you can put this little palm router in for doing little chamfers and trimming and stuff. But you can actually use it as a full router as well. So it comes with the handles, it's got the guide. So I'm going to be using that to do my rebate with. I don't think the bit I've got is quite wide enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to attempt to do it in one pass. I'm just going to do it in a few passes, just to make sure that it's not splitting out and we're not burning and all sorts of things like that. So we'll see how we go with this. I'm just going to mark this rail out and then we'll start routing. Okay, so there we have our rebate to take our tongue and groove boards. Like I say, it took me a couple of goes, a few passes, but it's worth doing rather than trying to do that in one go, I think. You know, it's another case of making do with what you've got, but that's come out really well. So I just got to do the other side, and I've got to do the top rail as well, because our boards are going to be sitting in our top rail as well, so I've got to do that one as well. So I will get those done, and then after that we will sort out the tenons. Right, let's just have a quick recap then of where we're at so far. So what we've done is we've mortised out all our mortises on our stiles. We've rebated both of our stiles to take the tongue and groove boarding that's coming through. I've rebated the head as well, because our boards will be coming into here. And the next step is to mark out the tenons for the top rail, the middle rail and the bottom rail. Now the reason that I rebated these stiles first is because now when we come to do this top rail, our shoulder marks for our tenons are going to be different on either side because of our rebate. So we're going to have a rebated tenon at the top. So the bottom, let's bring this down here. The bottom of our shoulder is going to be here, which is going to be going against that part of the timber. But now our top shoulder is going to be 20 mil in from there because of our rebate, and then that shoulder will sit against there. So that's why I wanted to get those rebates done first, just so that I get an exact measurement of our rebated shoulder on the top. So we can mark that out with the mortise gauge, because we know how big our mortise is already. The middle rail, because it's narrower, it's only going to come up to the top of this rebate. We're going to be doing effectively a half lap joint on here, because we haven't got a top shoulder, so it's going to be a half lap joint. So the thickness of the bit we're cutting out is obviously going to be the thickness of what's left on our rebate, and then that tenon is just going to slot into there, and the same with the bottom rail, it's going to be exactly the same. So I've marked with the marking gauge the thickness of that rebate, or what's left of the timber, and that is going to be our waste material, and what's left is going to be the tenon that slots in there. So I've marked all those out. I'm going to mark out the mortises, mark out the tenon with my mortise gauge for the top rail, and then we will get on to the cutting of the tenons. Now it's time for the tenons then. So just to quickly recap, we've got a top rail, middle rail and bottom rail. As you can see, we've held them all up together. We've transferred our marks that we need for the width and for the tenons. Everything's over length, by the way, still at the moment. I haven't cut the length of the tenons yet. I've left them along for now. And on our top rail, you can see that we've done our rebated shoulder for our top tenon. So this is going to be the bottom of the underneath of the door. That's going to be the top, and that bit's going to sit in the rebate. So we've done that. So our next job is to cut the tenons. So what I'm going to do for that is I've got the big guns out. This is a Dewalt 300mm cross-cut saw. It's 1600, I think it's just over 1600 watts. Does loads of things, this saw, which I love. It's a great saw to have in your workshop. I used to have this in my workshop, and I left it there because it is heavy. That's the only thing about this. It is really heavy if you're lugging it around sites all the time, especially up scaffolds. So yeah, I've had this in my workshop, but I'm in between workshops at the moment, so this is back out with me on site. Like I say, it's got loads of cool features which does pretty much everything I want it to. So it will tilt both ways instead of it up to 50 degrees, I think it is on this one, or 45. But yeah, it tilts both ways. It's got loads of different stops on it, so you can do stop angles if you want to, so you can sort of preset where you want different things. But the other cool thing, and which I'm going to be using this for, is it has a stop depth. You can stop the depth of the saw, which in our case is going to be great for cutting tenons. This is not plugged in, by the way, so do not do anything like this when it's plugged in. So it's going to not go all the way through, so it's going to stop. So we are going to be able to slide it backwards and forwards and cut our tenons. So what I will do is I will start with the middle rail first. I'll put another timber against the bed, just because I want this saw to make sure that the depth has gone all the way through the joint. Whereas if I put it up against the bed, you can see that the curve of that blade won't go through all the way through the tenon. So I've brought it forward so that it will go all the way through. And what we're going to do is we're just going to keep sliding it through, making various cuts until we get to the shoulder. And then we will do our final cut on the shoulder. Now there's different blades you can get for this. You can get like a, what is it, like a dado cutter, which will cut wider grooves and it cuts out more material at once, which is really for tenoning and stuff like that. But I haven't got one of those. I've just got the normal blade, which is fine. It's just going to take a few more cuts, and then we will see how we go. So I think I've marked the depth already for this one, so we should be good to carry on. Let's just test it on a bit of the waste material first. Plug it in. Right then, we've got all our mortises chopped, we've got all our tenons cut. So if you've made it this far, well done. If you're still there, or if not, then I am just talking to myself, making a gate. But there you go. So the next stage now is putting all your joints together. So it's time to see if all this hard work is going to mean something, or whether you're just going to have a fancy bit of firewood at the end of it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try let's try the first joint then. So we'll start with the head. Let's see if this is going to go in. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, that's gone in, and I think that shoulder's nice and that shoulder is nice, so I'm happy with that one. So what I'm going to do now, just prise it out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to dry fit the whole thing now. Put it all together, put the whole gate together with the joints. Just take your time doing this. Just check that, you know, that all the shoulders are nice and tight and it's flush with the back and the front. Because we've done this by hand, you are probably going to have to sort of do a bit of pairing and a bit of tweaking here and there. And then hopefully you should end up with some sort of a frame that looks like a gate. Just to make things a bit easier, if you just sort of chamfer the ends of the tenons and maybe the edges, just so that it doesn't get stuck. Otherwise you've got two complete right angles that you're trying to fit together as well. So if you just chamfer the edges a little bit, that might help you to get the joint together. And yeah, I'm going to do the rest of these now, and hopefully we shall have a frame together. Here then is our frame. I've got all the joints together. A couple of them were needed easing, pairing off a bit more, just so they fit nicely, but they're all together now, it's all flush. Want to do, I'll show you how to do that when I'm doing the gluing. But that is the next stage now, is to glue everything together. So I've got these sash clamps here, which I'm going to use to pull it all together. I've only got two actually. I could have done with another one for the middle, but I've only got two, so I think that joint is pretty tight anyway. So what I might do is put the cramp on the top here and the middle one, and I might just screw that one together while the cramps are on, then take it off and then leave it down the bottom. So the glue I'm going to use is expanding glue. This one is, you can actually glue things together underwater with this, so it's fully waterproof. And the idea of this is it expands slightly. So if you have got any gaps in your joints, if you found one that's a bit baggy, don't worry too much. You can use some like expanding glue, and that will fill up all the gaps, and in fact you'll probably see it starting oozing out everywhere, and that will hold everything solid. So that is the next stage we're going to do. This one goes off in like 5 minutes, so I'm going to have to be pretty quick with this one. So I'll start with one side, doing one side and then slotting them all in, and then I will glue the other side, put them together, cramp it all up, square it and leave it to dry. Just to quickly show you the squaring process then, what you want to do is get yourself a scrap bit of timber, ideally not as big as this, but this is the only bit that I've got. And what you want to do is you want to put a pencil mark on the internal corner on the bottom here, and then you want to put a pencil mark on the internal corner on the top here, and then if you swap that around so that that is on that corner on your pencil mark, there, and if it lines up with the pencil mark you've just done, you'll know that it's square. If it doesn't, then draw another pencil mark so I can see that this one is slightly out of square. So draw another pencil mark. So now you've got two marks on this rod here. So now what you want to do is, I know that that's got to go that way to square it up. So I'm going to tap it with my hammer, and you kind of want to tap it so that corner is in between the two pencil marks that you've just done. So I'm just going to hold that edge, give it a tap like that. Now it's in between those two pencil marks that I've just marked on there. That's still on there. That's in between the two, so I'll just swap that over again, back to where that one was. Just check this. So that is on the corner. Just check this. And now this corner is in between the two pencil marks as well. So that means that that is now square. And that is how you square it up. So I'd do that, and then I'd cramp these up tight once the glue's all in. Cram that up and then just check it again. So here we have it then, people. This is our gate frame, all glued up, all squared up, ready for the next stage. Now what I've done is I routed a rebate on the top, a chamfer on the top edge of this the frame, just to match the chamfer on the tongue and groove board, which is going to be our next stage. So as you can see, when they're together, you have a nice V shape, which is this what it's called. It's T, G and V, which is tongue and groove, and the V means the V shape on the edge. So I've done that on the stiles and the head, just to match the tongue and groove boarding. And also what I've done is I've put 2 coats of undercoat all the way around the rebate, and on the middle rail, on the bottom rail, and I've put 2 coats of top coat, which is the grey colour you can see, just because they're all the edges that we're not going to be able to get to later on, and you've got to make sure that they are weathered as well, because the rainwater will get in there. So it's one of those things that you need to take your time and do it, and I know it's boring, but it will pay off in the end, so that your gate doesn't start swelling up in the gap. So then the next stage is the tongue and groove boarding. So what I'm going to do is I've got to make sure that this top edge is square with the top rail, and also I'm going to put a chamfer on this top edge as well to match the chamfer on the head, and also it gives something for the rainwater to just wash off on. So as you can see, these tongue and groove boards, I've put knotting on them already, which will stop the sap from coming through the paintwork. I've put 2 coats of undercoat primer on the groove side and on the tongue side, and I've put 2 coats on the back edge as well. So the next stage then is another boring stage, but we have to do it, and that is I'm going to top coat this tongue and top coat this groove and top coat this tongue with top coat as well, just so that it is all weathered, because it's tempting, I know, just to cut all these boards and fix them all together and then paint the whole thing afterwards. But what can happen when you do that is, if these boards are going to move in and out, expand and contract with the weather, with the heat and with the cold, then what can happen is if you've got some bare timber on this edge, you will see it when they're contracted, and you'll see some raw timber, which you don't want to do. And also it's just another place for rainwater to get in, and it will start swelling and all sorts. So take your time, undercoat and top coat all the bits that you can't see. It will be worth it in the end, because the last thing you want is for your customer to phone you up a year down the line or 2 years down the line saying that their gate's all warped and swollen, and you don't want that. So just take your time, do all the painting, do 2 coats of everything, get it right, and then I will see you back when we are fixing the tongue and groove boards. Done all the painting that I need to do then. So now, as you can see, I'm putting the tongue and groove boards on. You might find it's a bit harder to get in now because we've painted it. It might be a bit tricky to get in. So what I'm doing is I'm getting my sash clamps that we've been using. Just put a scrap bit of wood in there so we don't bruise the tongue. And then we cramp it up. It should pull it together, like so. I'll do the same at the bottom as well. There's a sash cramp. Pull that up together. It will. There you go. Like so. Some of you might need to do the middle as well. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to screw the fronts rather than pin it, again just because I want to minimize any movement. So going to drill a pilot hole first with this drill. So I've got 3 drills out actually, only because I'm countersinking with this one because I've busted the drill off of this counterbore. So I'm having to use it without it, so I'm pre-drilling it with another drill, like that. Just so that the screws go under, and then with my 3rd drill we screw it up. So again, whenever I'm doing second fix stuff like this or joinery, I always just use my 12 volt set. I find that's adequate for for doing things like this. I don't feel like you need a big 18 volt set for doing stuff like this, so I use my 12 volt set probably more than I do my 18 volt. Just for things like this, it's this, you got more, I feel like you've got more control a little bit, and it's not, you know, not as heavy and as awkward. So that's what I'm doing, working my way along. Now the other thing I've been doing is keeping an eye on the measurement, because we want a full board to finish here. So with the tongue and groove, you've got a tolerance where you can move it in, you can move it out a little bit on each board if you have to. So I've been keeping an eye on it, and I do need to creep it this way a couple of 3mm. But yeah, we can do that, and it's not the end of the world doing that. So I'm going to carry on doing this, and then I will be back when we come in to do the side, which is the braces, which is kind of the last important joinery bit really. And then it's just filling and painting, and then we'll hang it. Okay, so we are on the home straight now. All our boards, tongue and groove boards, are on. They're all screwed up from underneath. I flipped the gate over, and so we move on to the last stage now of the joinery stage, that is, and that is the bracing. So you might say, why do we need to put the braces on? Well, these braces will help hold this gate square, and it will stop it from dropping that way, so it'll hold it square. And what you want to do is you want to work out, so I know that this door is going to be hung this side, this gate's going to be hung this side, so I want to aim my braces so the top corner is at the furthest point from our hinge. Same with this one, and that is because this brace is going to hold that side of the gate up, and it's going to stop it from dropping like that. So you have to make sure that it is always pointing up in the opposite corner to where your hinges are going to be. Otherwise, if they're the other way, it's not going to support that at all, it will still drop that way. So that's what you need to do, and once you know that, you will realise, when you look at a lot of gates, you'll realise that they're not hung correctly, because people don't know when they buy a gate that they're actually supposed to hang it a certain way, or if they make a gate, they're not really sure about which way the braces go. So that's what we're going to do. So what you do is you cut your bit of timber to the length of that point there and that point there. That is going to be your length. And you put a centre mark on your brace, and you hold that centre mark in that corner, and you hold the other centre mark in the other corner. So everything lines up. Like so. And then the next thing you're going to do is just pencil mark where these two bits, where the brace and this middle rail meet. You just put a pencil mark up there, pencil mark up the other side, do the same at the bottom, pencil mark up there, a pencil mark up there, and then you square that up, you join these two lines up with your centre mark. Let's just do that quickly. So we'll square that up there, we'll square that one up there, and then we will join those two lines up like so. Same with that one. So you will have a point. So then what you want to do is you want to go and cut them, and you should end up with something like that. It's got a point either end. And then if you've done it right, that should just lay in there nicely. And then if you carry on that pencil line all the way through, and the same there, and then we're going to mark round and draw a line on the other face, just so we know where to screw the brace to, and then you won't be missing, so you'll have a line going through. So I'm going to do that next, fit these two, and yes, it's time for painting. So I'm going to undercoat the underside, top coat the underside before I put these in. It's not worth skipping any processes at this stage because we're almost there now. Then once I've done that, I am going to sand everything up. Just going to make sure these shoulders are all nice and flush, give it a sand in, and then I'm going to fill any holes that you can see with some filler, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, filling all our screw holes. I'm going to be using this 2-part filler for filling up all these holes. So you get the paste, and then you get a little tube of hardener that you put like a little pea-sized bit in, and you mix it all up, and it goes hard. So I'm going to fill all our screw holes with this. Just one tip with this is that when you fill it, you don't want to leave a bulge. You want to try and fill it as flat as you can, just because this sets really hard, and you'll be forever sanding trying to get the lumps out. So try and get it as smooth as you can, and then that will help you with your sanding. So that is another process I'm going to do. Here we are then, people. Our gate is all together. That is all the joinery done. So it's all been sanded, all the holes have been filled, we've got our braces on, and also I have put the hinges on. I've got these hook and band hinges. So basically you just screw the hinge to the gate, and then this bit goes onto the frame, and basically that just slots in like that, and then you screw that to your post. So they're really easy to fit. I've put one on top and one at the bottom. Also you get this bolt that goes through this hole from the other side, but I'm going to put that on once the gate's up and I'm happy with everything. Then I'll put that on, and also I'm going to finish all the painting when the gate is up as well, just so that I don't have to handle it a second time. So it is time to hang the gate. here is our finished gate then, all hung and painted. Just got to put the bolts in the hinges there and put a lock on. I think we'll be putting a rim lock on this one with a bolt at the top and at the bottom. There's just one thing I didn't mention earlier that I wanted to about the braces, and that is the angle of these braces was coming out at about 46 degrees, 46.5 I think it was. Ideally you don't want it to be any less than 45 degrees, just because of, well, laws of physics really. If it's over 45 degrees then it will still tend to drop, because it's not as upright. So if it's over 45 degrees it becomes less effective, and what can happen if it's too low is it will start pushing that joint out in the corner. But I went with it anyway just because I wanted to show you the preferred way that I like to do the braces. So what you can do to make that angle shallower is you'll start the point in this corner, so you'll just have a straight cut across the bottom there, and that will bring the angle into 45 degrees. If you're still not getting it, then you'll have to bring the brace further along, and then you'll have to like house out the middle rail and the top rail to bring it up. But that's kind of something a bit different. But yeah, 45 degrees is probably what you want. But as I say, I went with it just because it was a little bit more, and I just wanted to show you the preferred way of doing it. There we have it then. I hope that you found this video helpful. I appreciate it. It's been quite a long one, this one, but I just wanted to show to you what's possible out on site really, you know, and using proper joints, and at the end of it making the gate. So let me know what you think, and I'll be happy to reply to any comments that you've got, or any questions that you've got. And also I'll leave a list of what tools I've used, just in case you're interested in those and wanting to know where to get them from. And I will see you next time on Everywhere Tools for more tool reviews and carpentry tips. Take care.